Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Battle of the Brands, Battle of the Brushes. We've got two detailed brushes we're going to go head to head with today in today's video. We've got the Harder & Steenbeck Infinity CR+ on a 0.15mm and we've got the Creos Mr. Hobby, which is the PS771, which is a 0.18mm needle and nozzle setup. So I'm going to give you my honest opinion on both brushes. We'll do a little spray out a bit later on and show you what these brushes can do, how they deal with the paint, and my thoughts on both brushes. I'll give you some good points about the brushes and some sort of bad points and some quirky bad points, ones that I can pick up on anyway in my experience with these brushes. So we'll look at the H&S first and then move over to the Creos in a minute. So the brush we are looking at today is the Infinity CR+. This is the 0.15 needle and nozzle setup, so it's the smallest needle out of the two of these brushes. Now I've owned an Infinity for a long time. I was a big die-hard H&S fan, always used them. I owned a few brushes, still got them now, they still work. So the actual Infinity itself, I'll go build first. The actual build quality on the Infinity, the machining on the parts is second to none. It really is. The actual feel of it, the chuck is nice. Everything about it is put together well, and they've been around for a long time. This brand has been around for a long time, guys, so they know what they're doing when it comes to building a exotic brush, as I would say, as in build quality. Now the first generation Infinity that I owned, I've got the body here. This is the actual Infinity body. This was the first gen, so I was using a lot of solvents at the time, and the solvents stripped the internal coating on the cup and the front of the body from here down where the paint's flowing. It stripped it. The actual body itself is tarnished badly. The Infinity logo's gone completely. That's how old this brush is. So I revamped the brush and brought a new body to the front. I brought a new body, new needle, new nozzle, and a full kit to put all the washers and things back together. So we've got the CR+ body now, so this is practically a brand new brush. All the internals are new. So it's a better body if you're using solvents. It won't strip it, it's just a better coating on the body and the cup. So that's first off. So when you look at the back of these brushes, you've got your cutaway. Now the cutaway on this is nice because you can do your adjustment for your trigger tension on here. So this basically tightens up the spring and loosens the spring, which makes the trigger softer or harder in the movement doing this, going back. You've got your down movement here. Now you can adjust the tension, and I've done this in the past, fiddle with the tension this way by going into the airbrush that way, fiddling around with the spring, and you can make this movement springier or softer. To the back you've got your adjuster here, so that is your dial for your trigger, which stops your adjustment to this. You can click it in and out on this, which is nice. When you take the back off, you've got a real nice machined chuck, which works really well. To the front of the brush on these, some of the kits you get with this brush, you can get some different caps. Now you've got your 2-prong cap, which is this one, which is a really good idea on this brush, guys. I really do like the 2-prong at the front. It's easy to clean your tip dry, and if you knock your brush, if you're working, you knock your brush, which does happen, you can bend your needle, but because you've got the one with the 2 prongs, it's just a little bit of protection around that needle that is exposed at the front. So it's a real nice idea. They slide on and off like that. You can also get a cap that slides over the front that's got 2 bars that come out and a circle, and it's a distance gauge. You can slide it along a ruler edge. You can get some really nice straight lines with it. So that's a nice little cool feature on these brushes. Another bonus with these brushes is the cups. You can take the cups off, which is really nice. Makes it a little bit easier for cleaning because you can soak these. You can see and get to the closer to the body of the brush when you're cleaning. You can interchange the cup, so you can get the micro cup, which sits just a little bit higher than the actual body sort of cup there, as you can see. So it gives you more visibility when you're working on real fine detail stuff. Gives you a little bit more visibility without the cup in front. You can get the next size cup up, so if you need to use more paint, and then you can get a bigger cup as well, which is a bonus. I'll leave a link in the description where you can get all the parts for these brushes. You can also interchange the needles and nozzle setups on this brush. So you can turn this from a 0.15mm, a 0.2, I think you can get 0.3, 0.4, 0.6, and I think the biggest is a 0.8 on these. So you can adapt this brush. You could have one brush and have the needle and nozzle setups. So if you're doing something bigger, you can drop a bigger needle in and nozzle, and you can get that little bit more paint flow. So all in all, H&S have sort of thought of all the aspects and covered all the posts with this brush, in my eyes, where you can change all the bits, you can get all the bits of the brush. It's been around for a long time, so everything's available, which is a bonus. So you are getting a good brush, guys. And I swore by these when I had them and used them through my career, because they got me through where I was going to in my airbrushing. Then I moved over to Iwata, and the next brush that I picked up was the Custom Micron. Now, if you've owned one of these and you jump straight onto a Micron, you will notice the difference straight away. And the first thing you will notice is trigger. Without a doubt, that is the first thing you will pick up on when you go from an Infinity to a Micron. It's the trigger. Instantly, you think, crikey, this trigger's incredible on the Micron. The movement is you fraction and that paint's there. And that's when you find and see the downside to the Infinity, and that is my only bugbear with the Infinity, is the trigger. Everything else about this brush, for me, it works, but it boils down to the trigger. And that's what I noticed when I jumped across to a Micron. So that's a little bit about the Infinity. We'll move back over to the Infinity a bit later on, and we'll do some spraying with it, and you'll get to see what this brush can do. So the one that it's up against, and I've picked this brush to go up against it, as I'm saying these two are price pointed about the same. When I brought that one, it was in the £200 mark, and when I brought this one, it was in the £200 mark. So I'm putting these two together for a head-to-head. So the next brush is the Creos PS771, which is a 0.18mm needle and nozzle setup. So a little bit about the Creos. Now, I picked this brand up, I was using the Micron. Go to Micron all the time, die-hard fan, Micron. Everything was Micron, because we all look at these artists, the photorealistic artists, and they all use a Micron. So you save your money up and you buy a Micron, like we all do, because we all want to follow suit, and we all want to look up to these amazing artists and think, well, if they've got one and look at their work, I've got to get one. We all do it. So I picked the 771 up. Now, the Micron has stayed on the shelf. It's still on the shelf, and I don't use it. Now, the reason why I don't use it is, when it comes to me doing detail, I just grab this. And the reason why I just grab this is, the Micron comes up smaller, so it's a smaller brush. I personally like a longer brush in my hand. I just get on better with it, and a little bit weightier brush. I prefer it. I always started out on top cup airbrushes, not side feeds. So I've always been used to a top cup airbrush, a bit longer body. The Micron comes up a little bit smaller. So I was always picking this up. This is my go-to detail brush, and this will match the Micron, or I can get this to match the Micron on what it does. I can do the same details, portraits, no matter what. I can jump and do a portrait with the Micron, and I'll jump and do you a portrait with the Creos, and I'll get them identical between the two. Not a problem. The actual front end on this is a Micron front end. Exactly the same setup, 0.18, so you're getting your Micron bit here. The trigger, yes, different trigger to the Micron. Micron's flat, which I absolutely love, and tilts to the front. Lovely trigger. The softness and responsiveness of this trigger is just as good. It's not flat, it's round, but it's just as good responsiveness for paint. You know when it's coming out as the Micron. The bonus on this to the Micron, the side feed one anyway, you get the Mac valve to the front, which is brilliant, with a air valve here. Works really, really good. You've got your cutaway like the Infinity, you've got your adjuster like the Infinity to the back. On the body, you've got a nice scallop piece that comes down here, which I find really comfortable, especially when you're holding it like this. It just sits nice here, gives a little bit of a slope for your finger to sit on instead of sitting up tucked into that corner of the body here. So it's a more comfortable brush than the Infinity to use. The trigger is better than the Infinity, without a doubt. The responsiveness on this is better trigger than that. So in my eyes, they're both good brushes. They're both good detail brushes, but that pips the post for the features than the Infinity. The build quality, I'd go Infinity. Parts, you can get parts for both brushes quite easily. I'd say the Creos is more reasonable on parts than Infinity, than H&S. They come up a little bit cheaper. So we'll go head to head on these two brushes. You've got die-hard fans of H&S, and you are getting a big cult following and die-hard fans of Mr. Hobby. And I'm in with that group because they're great brushes. I was in this group, but now I've jumped over the fence to this one. And you will see, when you pick one of these brushes up, you will understand what I'm on about when it comes to trigger. If you're permanently using that one and you've not picked up another good airbrush like Micron or a trigger like this, you won't know until you try it, guys. And this is why I'm doing this head to head, is just to show you what makes that a cracking brush, when people used to think this was a cracking brush. Pick another brand up, give it a go, see what you think. So let's move on to the spray test. I've babbled on long enough. We'll chuck some paint down that one's neck, and we'll chuck some paint down that one's neck, and I'll try and get the camera up as close as I can, and we'll do a little bit of trigger response. See you in a bit. I'm hoping this is picking it up. We've got some blue paint, we've got the same paint in both brushes, we're running the same air pressure in both brushes. Now we'll do a little bit with the Infinity first. So I'm just going to get to grips with this brush. The air that's leaking is coming out of this quick connect here, it's not very good. So we'll just get a feel for it. And as you can see, the Infinity drops paint down really, really well. Atomises nice. I've instantly got the feel for this brush again. Quite a thin paint this. Now if I hold this up, and if you can see the trigger, and then watch when the paint comes out, look at how much is rocking before you get that dot of paint. There's a little bit of movement there, Feels like you're rocking the trigger quite a wobbly bit before you get the paint. As you can see, the paint's like there and the movement in that trigger. So there is a little bit of movement in that trigger before you get the paint. It's like you're just bringing it back slightly. You've got no paint coming out of that, and I've moved the trigger back. No paint. Move the trigger back, move the trigger back. Still no paint. I've got that much movement in the trigger. A little bit further, and then we've got paint. So you're tending, when you've got this brush in your hand, you tend to instantly move it to that point and hold it there, and then go off of that point to get your paint. But this brush will get seriously down. That's picking that up. They are fine, really, really fine. It's probably the smallest needle setup you can get in a brush, and it will get down, guys. Once you've got that balance right on that trigger, you can get some super dots, tiny down. It puts a nice overall spray out, nice. So hopefully that's picked that up. Onto the 771 and just get a feel for this. Same thin paint, guys. And me personally, instantly, you know the difference. Now, if this is picking this up, that is, see how the paint is there. See the fraction that is moving back on that trigger. The paint is instantly there. That tiny movement in your finger, that's picking that up. See how much of a fraction that trigger's moving, and that paint's there. And this thing will get down, as you can see. So let me just get that needle set up. That's just catching. That fraction, and that's dropping a dot down, that tiny little bit of movement there, and that's what it's about, guys. That's what I'm on about. Until you pick one of these brushes up and try the trigger compared to the Infinity, you'll know what I'm on about. But once you've got the Infinity trigger dialed in and you're moving slightly back, and then that paint comes and you can hit that point every time, you won't notice the difference if you've permanently got the Infinity in your hand. But again, this thing will get down super nice. Not as fine as the Infinity. The Infinity will get down that tiny little bit more. But it's that responsiveness for me on the trigger. That tiny little movement. And that's when you need it, when you're going down on them tiny little details and putting a dot in an eye or something like that. You've got that really minimal movement in the trigger. And that's the only thing for me that lets the Infinity down, is just that little bit of play. And it's not massive, but it's enough when it comes down to a detail brush and you're getting them pinpoint dots or tiny little dagger strokes and things like that. But I just love the Creos, and you've got the Mac valve on the front where you can just dial your pressure in. So when you've got real thin paint, you can instantly dial it just here, which is an absolute bonus, guys. So that's my little test on both of these brushes. You've seen the Infinity. That's my test, guys, on both brushes. They're both great brushes, they really are. I mean, if you're permanently used to the Infinity, you don't tend to notice what I was on about there until you pick another brush up and you can see that movement. It's just that little bit more movement. It's like you're moving 2 mil more backwards, and then that paint's there. But when you pick up the Creos, it's instant. It's like the Micron. The Micron's the same. You touch the Micron trigger and the paint is there. It's like absolutely precision, and they've sort of gave that feel to the 771 the same, that like nice reaction time for your paint. The Infinity just, to me, just seems like a teeny bit of a delay, but once you get that delay sorted and you're used to it, the brush proper gets down. It really does. It was doing hairlines, not a problem, the Infinity. It really does. It's a great brush, but as I say, you'd notice the difference when you pick another brush up. And that's what this little test, and that's what it's about, guys. When you're buying a £200 price bracket brush, there are better ones out there, and I think the 771 just pips the post when it comes to trigger response, and that's the only thing I can put it down to out of the two brushes, is trigger response. Both brushes perform and will do what you want them to do, but one just does it that little bit easier, and that's what it's about. And that's what makes a big difference, especially when you're doing, if you're going into the photorealistic sort of stuff and the real fine detail. It's them little key points that make a brush, make or break it. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's been quite a long one. That's my honest opinion on the two brushes. I don't want to knock either because they're both good, but for me, the 771 just pips it. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe, press that notification, and I will see you in the next video, which is up today. We're going to crack on with the Lambretta panels and get these up into clear coat. So I hope you can join me in that one. Cheers.